On this episode of A State of Control, we talk about the changes in the industry impacted by product availability and how programmers need to shift what they're doing, learn new things, and be challenged a little bit. All that and more on A State of Control.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
A State of Control.
State of Control, episode 94, Integration Nirvana.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Atlona, the go-to provider for AV signal distribution and control in corporate, higher education, and residential spaces.
Welcome to A State of Control, an AVNation podcast that highlights the control, programming, and automation aspects of the audiovisual industry. My name is Steve Greenblatt. I'm your host. Thanks for joining us today. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how programmers can approach learning new things, new platforms, new languages, and so forth, and basically expand their offerings. With me to discuss this topic are a couple of returning guests. And before we get to them, I do have to say that unfortunately we won't have Rich Fergosa today, and we wish him well, and he will certainly be with us on our next episode, but he had a personal matter, so we're unfortunately won't have him joining us, but we are prepared to talk more and fill the gaps that he left. He left us some big shoes, and two returning guests that are going to help with that. The first is Nick Miller. He was last with us in episode 83, and Nick's an AV professional veteran from the Pacific Northwest. Welcome, Nick. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Thanks for being here. And last but not least, I'd like to welcome back Jack Colasar. He's from 4th Bit, and he was last with us on episode 74. So not too long ago. And welcome back, Jack. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you guys again.
Thanks. And so when we are currently recording this, we're about midway through 2022, and everybody is dealing with some challenges to complete projects. There's definitely an impact in product availability, and we have to make a lot of substitutions and learn new products and kind of make things work with what you have to work with these days. And in order to do that, it causes you to have to learn and try new things and basically expand your horizons. And with that is learning the new products and being more comfortable with them. But it also includes, from a programmer standpoint, learning the software components that also go along with that. Some are interfacing with new products, and some are learning new programming languages. So, Nick, I'm going to start the conversation off with you. When you're looking at new products, and we talked about this in a previous episode, but I want to kind of tie it in a little bit. How much do you think control comes into play when we're either looking at a new product to work with, or we're looking at maybe even a new system to invest in?
Yeah, it's huge. There's been pre-COVID, there was already a natural shift or trend starting for our systems to become more software defined as opposed to hardware defined. With that, there comes more configuration, more programming, all of those things. COVID and the chip shortage and everything related to that has only accelerated that trend. So it's becoming more and more important for AV programmers and developers to be able to to use commodity hardware to kind of build and define and put together the software building blocks, whereas previously a lot of those tasks would have been put together by black boxes. So we're seeing a shift in the roles, being more engineer hardware specific to just put in putting in equipment and hardware that can cover a wider breadth of functionality, and then tailored via software and programming.
I would agree with that, and I think that that's actually a really great conversation to have, and it seems like it would play in well to both those who are invested in the programming side as well as those who want to get more involved, and many of those I would believe are in our audience. Jack, kind of continuing on in that conversation. What Nick said, I think, is important to think about. We want to fill in the gaps with software. So how do you actually go about that? Is that something where we are trying to write code that is going to either replace hardware, or are we just trying to figure out more creative ways to make the hardware do what it needs to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very manufacturer and job specific. I think you can't really like glue yourself to one manufacturer or one solution. I mean, obviously, even up to the last minute, sometimes I have contractors that are just may switch out something from Crestron to AMX or QSC or something. I mean, so you need to be familiar with all of the different, whether it's going to be Lua script or Python or whatever it's going to be. It's a lot. You need to be adaptable to them, as well as, a lot of things. Like I find myself probably, almost as much time doing switch configuration, network configuration, device setup, that kind of thing for a lot of the installers. So, having a good IT background is definitely a plus, because a lot of it is just coming down to, the devices just plug in, but you need to know what you're doing. And a lot of those are software based too, like even Crestron with their VC4 solution. And now it supports Simple. So, I had some manufacturers that were like, can we switch out these CP4s for VC4s? And like, it's a PC. I'm like, is that going to be a solution you want? Do you need help configuring a Linux server? So it's definitely changing. It makes things a lot more adaptable when it is completely software based and it uses a standard just x86, PC. So, has its pluses and its minuses, I guess. So.
Let me follow up on that a little bit then. Is this something, so sounds like this is going to really put a spotlight on what programmers do, but I think it's also going to put a lot more responsibility in a programmer's hands. What's the best way, or what are some ways that you've approached that can lead to success and also try to advise your clients that you work with, to make sure that they're making good choices or avoiding pitfalls?
I've had a couple of projects where I was brought in at after somebody else had already had at it and they're having some issues. And like, well, it's really, in some cases, was not the appropriate solution that should have been made. So yeah, a lot of it is getting ahead of it and, maybe being involved in the design some, if you can, if you've got customers that you're constantly working with and at some point they're just going to end up calling you anyway and say, hey, we've got this project. What do you think this will work? Or, and you work with them. And I think that just comes with experience and being open to working with anything. I always tell my kids, just don't ever, when you go to decide on a career, don't base that on, what's the latest, whatever, where the, biggest, market is. Just do what you like doing. And, if you enjoy electronics and you enjoy the AV industry, you're going to learn about all this other product one way or another. So, it's just keeping an open mind and just, what even learning new languages. If you don't need to pick a language and say, I'm going to learn this, it's more needs based. So if there's a new device that's coming out and you thinking this is the way that this system is set up or this solution is provided, then, at some point you're probably going to want to learn that, and I'm sure you'll enjoy doing it. So.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense. And, one of the reasons why I brought you guys on is because I know that you're multilingual and you both have experience in a lot of different areas. And Nick, can you elaborate on that a little bit as to Jack kind of makes it sound really easy where, you just pick up a new language and learn something, but there's a lot more to that. And I think that our industry has had a lot of really favorable situations where we've been able to invest in a platform and ride it for quite some time. And I think the longer you do that, the harder it might be to change. So, any comments and tips that you could offer there?
Yeah, I think historically AV programmers have been able to be strictly specialized on one platform or another, maybe one or two platforms in total. Pretty much starting now and moving forward, programmers will have to be more generalized and be adaptable to different programming languages. We're already seeing that shift with different platforms going to open source and more general languages. And to Jack's point, being able to pick up a new language is a required skill at this point. I think being able to get a general understanding of the syntax of a language relatively quickly is going to be an important skill. There's definitely a distinction, I believe, between the higher level languages, your C sharps, your Pythons, and Lua and so on, as opposed to the lower level, like C programming languages. Thankfully, I don't believe our industry will get to that low a level and that close to the hardware. But just being able to break the functionality and the scope of a project down in such a way that it could be adaptable to any of the higher level languages would pay off dividends for an AV programmer, because like we were saying earlier, in the times that we're in right now, product shortages, etc., a project could change platforms midstream, and being able to adapt to that and apply the same scope of functionality from one platform to another on a dime is extraordinarily valuable.
I like the way you put that, and I also think we've talked in the past on the show. You probably think you were involved in this conversation where we said, where is the industry headed, and is modern programming the answer? Is this the time where we're going to see more of that? And if so, is it? Are we going to be looking at more off-the-shelf type solutions like where we're using less proprietary pieces and more customized, more programmable, universal pieces? I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. We're still in the infancy of it within the industry and with the hardware manufacturers that are leading the way. I personally have been pushing the manufacturers to be more accepting of open source packages and modules that are readily available on the marketplace. Those things that can save a developer time and prevent you from having to reinvent the wheel where you can just bring in a library that you know and trust and has been vetted in the open source community that is written in a common language is far more efficient than having to write from scratch or find within the relatively small AV community someone who's already developed a similar library.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it. I mean, there's a lot of advantages to that too. I mean, it's not like before where you had to learn this for this manufacturer and this for that manufacturer. Now you just have to maybe just learn this language, and you can use it on multiple platforms. I mean, you can already do that with even a couple of the manufacturers that are out now, maybe embracing Python. So I think, that may make it easier going down the road, because then you don't necessarily need to worry about this particular type of hardware. It's just going to work. And like Nick was saying with the libraries, I mean, like one of the shortfalls of some of the solutions is that maybe they don't support certain things that are supported within the language, these certain libraries, and so you can't use an off-the-shelf solution. But I think that is going the other way, and especially seeing it, with a lot of these systems that can be PC based. There's no reason for them not to be. So
I believe that's not only going to become a convenience factor in the future, it's going to become a requirement, because as integrations grow within AV control used to be a fairly narrow scope within the life cycle of business communications. Whereas now we're dealing with Teams, Zoom, all the various UC platforms, all the various continuous integration platforms in software development houses and things like that. The expectation from clients is and will continue to grow that we can integrate with all of these things. So being able to import those libraries and communicate with external platforms, even within the cloud and not on-prem, is going to be the only way we move forward.
Yeah, I remember days when you couldn't even communicate with like something if it was over SSL or SSH. Mm-hmm. And then, or if you had to do something, God forbid, doing a web post, you had to create the entire, header and everything. And it's just like, you got to reinvent the wheel. I mean, there's no sense in that. So, I mean, you got to stand on other shoulders. I mean, it's already out there. So
this all sounds very promising, and it's something that I've been excited about for a long time. And to me, this is where the AV industry really starts to shine and shows what it can do. We move out of the constraints of maybe some of the systems that would box us in and have more available resources but what it comes down to is it benefits the client a lot more, and AV I think gets a lot more respect in that regard. With that said, I don't want to look at this in the wrong way, but I think that there are a lot of programmers in the AV industry that don't have that background. They may not have needed it, or they may not have learned it because they really specialized in AV programming, which was it's I think a different art or a different skill set, and and some either came in with the background or have said, okay, I really like this, I want to learn more and expand what I can do. Nick, I'll start with you on this. Is that how do you get from point A to point B? Because it's I think it could be a somewhat of a jump for certain people.
Sure. AV programmers weren't born AV programmers. You've learned it along the way somehow. You've developed that learning skill set, and the technology has continually changed and evolved as we've gone on. Apply the same learning techniques and the same strategies in learning the other languages. There's no magic to it. Those that just want to stick their head in the sand and say, this is my platform, this is what I've done, this is what I've invested 20, 30, whatever years of my life into, are going to get left behind. And it's unfortunate that would happen, but that is the evolution of our business.
I mean, to me, I would certainly agree, but evolution is a good thing, and pushing the limits and growing. So to your point, challenge yourself to be better, and challenge yourself to say that I want to be learning and growing rather than being stagnant.
And I believe that AV programmers have a particular advantage moving into this new paradigm, where a lot of us have grown up through the ranks of technician, then engineer, then programmers. So we have a huge amount of knowledge of the products that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Being able to take the understanding of the limitations and advantages of one product or another, or an entire category, and apply that to an abstract scope of a project, and be able to say, this is what's going to work, this won't work, is that person will have a huge advantage over a generalist coming out of a computer science program at a university that has the language skills and the project background, but can't apply those to AV equipment and AV environments in specific.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's AV is AV. I mean, and it's just it's complicated in some time, but programming kind of fits within AV. It's not like any programmer out there that maybe all they know is a certain, one of those manufacturer specific languages. They still know AV. You got to know what you want the components to do in what situation. And that's the most important thing, not the language. So those skills are not going to be, they're always going to be valuable. Even if you decide, you absolutely do not want to learn any new languages, you're still going to have a job in the AV industry. But if you do love programming and you want to, get into that, it's something that, the writing's kind of been on the wall for a while now. I mean, and there's been, I think it would be nice if some of the manufacturers maybe did more in-depth, slower learning courses. I think would probably help to kind of bridge that gap. But I don't think anybody has to worry about finding a job or anything like that. So,
actually, bring up a good point. One of the things that I think we probably rely on the manufacturers a little too much for is training. I think that there's a certain amount of training that we need to find other resources that may be more global or less specific or less tied to either a brand or technology. Do you see, and Jack, I'll let you take this one. Do you see this changing in the future, or have you found other resources that you could recommend?
I mean, I would say that I have learned, and I didn't even take programming in college. Really, it was different major, but I have learned 1,000 times more from YouTube than I have in any structured course ever. I mean, you've basically got the world's experts at your fingertips. So whether it be working on cars, carpentry, my guitars and stuff, like even fixing those up, electronics, solar panels, doing like everything that I've learned in the past 20 years has come from YouTube. I mean, you go on there and there's an expert that maybe has an entire course structured perfectly, really easy to learn. I mean, it's learning from other people, and you have the advantage of having that at your fingertips. I mean, it's like nothing I had growing up, So I mean, I think it's great. I love it.
Nick, do you foresee more people getting into the AV industry because of this? Because maybe we're not as super niche. It's open to more people who could learn in school some skills that would apply, because we've always found, or it's always been that challenge that there really isn't a feeder into this industry. Will this help change that?
Yeah, I'm having more and more conversations with folks that are finding themselves kind of backed into the AV industry. They are kind of that traditional software developer. They've been approached with a scope of work and needing to make something work, and they realize that doing so requires specific AV hardware. So they come at it from the software end user side of things, or the user interface side of things, and they're kind of backtracking their way through it. So I think there's going to become more and more awareness in the general software development industry of who we are and what we do. We've been kind of flying under the radar for 20 years as software developers, because all of our products have been so, and our languages that we use have been so niche and only taught within the industry.
And I like what you guys said too about the fact that what we learn is special, and you still need that foundation, and it's still very valuable, but you now have to build upon that. And I do think that there's certainly a debate whether you learn AV and add the software, or you have the software and learn the AV. it could be argued either way as to which one is easier. But as we wrap up, I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on where we're headed. So I think that this is a time right now where we're able to have these conversations more openly, because I think that many people are open to different opportunities and different ways of solving problems and addressing needs, and I see that continuing, and that's probably a good thing. Jack, I'll start with you. If you were to look ahead, what other changes do you predict happening, and how would that impact what programmers do?
I mean, I think it's clear that we're headed towards. I think manufacturers are going to be making equipment, and that equipment needs to have an open, not just a protocol, but an open library, whatever, that you can then integrate into your control platform, which could be anything. And it's not, I don't see control processors being that way anymore, or even maybe DSPs or anything like. I see endpoints, and then you use whatever you want to control them, and you use HTML5 as your front end, and that could just be everything. Like every manufacturer, you can mix and match anything you want. It's not going to be a walled garden that you got to sit inside. And I think that's how the industry is. That's how I'd like to see it go, but we'll see.
All right, thank you. I like that forecast, and I think that sounds like it could present a lot of opportunities, but I'm sure challenges as well. Nick, similar question. Looking ahead and have a lot more years to be doing this. What do you feel you want to be focused on, and where are you doubling down your efforts so that you can be more future proof?
Yeah, I like what Jack said about manufacturers providing and creating libraries for implementation that are agnostic to any specific control platform. One thing I fear going into the future is we're seeing this on the consumer electronics side, where the bigger players in audio video space are creating partnerships among each other, and creating these silos and walled gardens where manufacturer A plays well with manufacturer B, but if you introduce manufacturer C, they don't integrate. I challenge us as an industry to push back on that trend of manufacturers kind of making these backdoor deals, and instead press for more open, not necessarily standards, but just open libraries and open integration paths, so that our clients can benefit from best of breed in every category when it comes to the hardware that we implement. That's who kind of is done a disservice by these walled gardens, where you can't create the total 100% Nirvana integrated solution. But if we as the AV programmers and leaders in this space can push back on the manufacturers to say, no, we absolutely need to be able to communicate with your product from external platforms, the cream will rise to the top, and those that are able, the manufacturers that listen and provide that, will be the ones that gain kind of the trust of the industry going forward.
I appreciate that, and I think that's probably a good place for us to wrap it up. This was very informative and insightful, and I thank you guys for working with me to really tease out a topic that I think requires a lot of thinking, and I'm sure this won't be the last time we speak about it. I'd like to thank you for being part of the show, and as we wrap up, Nick, how could people get in touch with you and learn more what you're up to?
You can find me on Twitter at Nick Mill. That's typically where I hang out and join the conversation with the rest of AV Tweeps. And
check out AV in the AM. I know you're there from time to time as well. So Sunday mornings.
A little difficult sometimes from the West Coast.
Yes, I'd imagine.
I try to make it.
And Jack Holliser from Fourth Bit. How can people get in touch with you and learn more about your company?
Not very social, but on the social media anyway, but you can absolutely contact me through my website. It's fourthbit.com, the number 4, thbit.com.
Great. Thank you. And for me, you can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social media platforms. Twitter and LinkedIn are probably where I spend the most time. And I do try to make the AV and the AM Sunday morning chats. And I encourage this audience to check that out. It's always something fun to talk about. And you learn something, or you get to socialize a bit with some other AV pros. And that's, as we know, put on by our friend Chris Netto. Also, please check out all the other shows on AVNation at avnation.tv, where there are many different verticals covered, weekly and monthly shows. And Rich and I both are involved in others as well, so you might be able to see us there. But we would also like to encourage you to leave us some feedback. Let us know what you like about the show. Reach out to us, connect. We like to hear what you think, and we also like to connect with our audience, so we're trying to encourage that more. And we are coming up on our 100th episode, so keep an eye out for that. And we want to get more people involved in the show, so if you're interested, please let us know. And with that, this has been A State of Control.